Snow Job is definitely a good episode of Cheers, but by no means is it a personal favourite. I find that it's definitely not as funny as a lot of episodes. It's not boring, I don't dislike it, but just compared to a lot of others, I didn't feel like it was as entertaining. This is the 18th episode of the second season of Cheers, directed by the brilliant James Burrows, and we have three main narratives, and I'll go in reverse order in terms of ones that I feel take up the most amount of time and the ones that are perhaps the most interesting. For me, one of the sub narratives is actually more interesting than the main story, the snow job story, if you like. But I'll get to that in a moment. There will be spoilers in this discussion from this point on. To be honest, though, I don't have anything particularly funny to share. Usually, when I discuss Cheers, I'll point out things that particularly made me laugh. But honestly, there wasn't very much in this one. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad episode, it just definitely wasn't as entertaining as the average episode. So there will be spoilers from now. And I feel like the part that takes up the least amount of time is Coach's story. Coach's narrative in this one involves him trying to set a record for the least number of glasses smashed within a certain time period. And to help him do this, he has put feathers down behind the bar and he has feathers on his feet. And to me, that was probably the most entertaining bit when Coach walked out from behind the bar and then we see the feathers on his feet. That I rather liked. In fact, most of the comedy comes from Coach. One of my favourite lines is when Sam says, I can't remember it exactly because I didn't write it down, but Sam says something like, I've got a funeral waiting for me. And Coach says, don't we all? And it made me laugh because I didn't expect it and I loved how dry and blunt the statement was. But I thought, yeah, actually, that's a very good point. We all have a funeral waiting for us. So it made me laugh, but it was also very thought provoking. I think for me, that was probably the episode's highlight. Norm has a new friend, a character called George, played by James Gallery, and I don't have any particular opinions about George as a character. I don't dislike the character, but I didn't really care for him. Cliff is very jealous. I think Cliff's behaviour was understandable. Norm laughed a lot, which I like to see. I love to see Norm happy, especially as he's been not having the best of times in the episodes leading up to this one. So it's nice to see him laughing and having a smile on his face. But it's definitely not that interesting a story, to be perfectly honest. The main narrative involves Sam going off to Vermont, and Carla happened to tell Diane, not maliciously really, just as a kind of tidbit of information, that Sam goes on holiday to Vermont for a ski weekend at the same time every year. And Diane tells Carla, no, he won't be doing it this year because he's with me, which I thought was a bit ridiculous. You shouldn't expect somebody to just stop a tradition just because they're in a relationship with you. I think that was a bit selfish on Diane's part. But the next thing we know, Sam is telling Diane that he needs to go to Vermont for his uncle's funeral. And it's not 100% clear whether that's, at least to begin with, whether that's the truth and it's a horrendous coincidence, or if he's going on this ski weekend. I think it's obvious, but in the episode, we're not 100% sure until Sam actually reveals what's going on. And I know Sam felt guilty about it and lying to Diane, but again, he shouldn't have had to have lied to Diane. And I think Diane's a great character. Unfortunately, I see too much of myself in Diane, but I would like to think that I wouldn't make somebody feel like they had to lie about something they were doing just to please me. I feel like Sam should have just said, hey, this is a tradition I have. I do this every year. I meet with my friends. He doesn't need to go around and go there and fool around with people. It's not like that has to be part of the tradition. He should still be allowed to meet up with his friends and have a ski weekend. Why would being in a relationship with Diane stop him? Invite Diane if he's that concerned. So I actually don't agree with the fact that Sam was feeling guilty about it. I don't agree with the fact that Diane said he wouldn't be doing it because he's with her now. And I hope that nobody watching it gets the same idea that that should be the situation. So it's a little bit awkward, to be perfectly honest, and not the best story either. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't find this as entertaining as some episodes, because for a lot of it, I was just getting really annoyed about these opinions and these perspectives because I definitely don't agree with it. But again, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it as such. I just didn't find it quite as funny or as engaging as most episodes. Nevertheless, that being said, Snow Job is one I will always watch, I imagine. I doubt I'd ever skip it. It's not a bad episode, but compared to the usual quality of Cheers, it's just not quite as good as the rest.